I would like to welcome our podcast audience. I'm Don Phipps, Superintendent of the Caldwell County Schools. I'm with Nathan Pope, the Chief Information Officer for the Caldwell County Schools. And this is another episode of our podcast that we call Learning Together, Conversations with the Caldwell County Schools. And today, Nathan and I have as our guest one of our school board members, in fact, our vice chair, Mr. Chris Becker. Chris, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for inviting me. And I'm still like mesmerized just by the state of the art of this lab. This is awesome.
Yeah.
As we've said before, this was made possible by some generous support in the name of Janet Wilson, and we're so grateful that we've had that opportunity. But we're going to get started, and then both of us will work off of each other asking some questions. But wanted to ask you to talk to us a bit about your pathway to being a board member.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm probably the non-typical board member. I mean, most of your board members, probably across the state are, ex-educators or have been in the education system, and I have not. Lucky for the education system. I came through the corporate America, but with my oldest daughter, it was she was in second or third grade, and I was always like, what's going on? I trying to find out information and those types of things, and I started to realize that the PTA/PTO was what seemed to be to me the way into the school to gather information and kind of know what was going on from the internal workings of the school. So I started volunteering, and I was even volunteering it so much at one point the kids were asking me, "Are you a teacher here? What grade do you teach?" Things like that. And I don't know if that was good or bad, but luckily for them, I was not a teacher. But and then I started getting like more hungry for more information and more things about the education system, because all I knew is what I had grown up in public schools. And so I started looking at like vice president of the PTA and PTO, and different organizations throughout the county, and just trying to get more involved, not because I thought I had something special to bring to the table, but I just wanted to know, and I wanted the information, and I felt like that was my avenue. And then, I don't know how long ago it was now, because I've actually been on the board twice now. I had one stint back, I think it was in 2010, where I did about 5 years on the board. And Mike LaBrose, really good friend of mine, of course, of the county, said, "What do you think about being on the school board?" And honest as I can be, I really didn't know what that meant. So, of course, my best friend Google and I got together and started talking and realized that, wow, this is even higher step, if you will, to find out, the inner workings of public education and the school system. And more importantly for me, Caldwell County, because that's where my kids were at. So, it was a journey. I probably started the revolution of the sign overdue in Caldwell County. I think I was part of that mess. And, but it's been a fun ride. Enjoyed it. Enjoyed every bit of it.
Now, you mentioned one thing that gives you a unique perspective, I think, and that is that you served a period, and then you were not serving, and then you came back.
Right.
How have things changed just in terms of the perspective of a school board member the first go-around versus what's going on now?
So obviously there's multiple aspects, but one of the things that and I won't say this, Dr. Phipps, just because you're sitting here, but this is true, and I've said this to many people without you sitting here. I think the leadership that you have brought to Caldwell County Schools, obviously, we work hand in hand with you, on a day-to-day basis, and it's just different. It's different than anything that I was a part of, when I was on the school board the first time. Not that it was bad the first time, I don't mean that, but just the accountability, responsibility, engagement, involvement from you, and from what you ask of the board members, or what the board members can bring to the table. So, for my perspective, I feel like there's just a little bit more requirement, if you would. Not requirement's a tough word, but accountability, because we do have a job to do. We are supposed to be accountable, and I think you do a really good job of holding us to that, and allowing us to do what we're supposed to do as board members.
And we're blessed with our board, and I think the administration that we've had here in the past, from superintendent all the way through the different levels, and certainly that includes board members, allow us to do the work that we do and not micromanaging. I think that's very important, and that's been a long history. Nathan?
So you mentioned that your career as a board member kind of started with curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
You wanted to know what was going on. You wanted to know how you could help. What more could you do? So Now that you've been here and you've seen it and you're somewhat of a veteran, what do you think is the most important thing for the community to know about what the school board does?
So one of the things I really wanted to clear up is we don't have these secret meetings, behind the doors where, because that's kind of like, some people think that, and, we're not even allowed to do that by law, but we don't have these secret meetings where we try to, push things along or push our agenda along. That's just not true. So, we try to be transparent. We try to be open. But I would say, probably the biggest thing is, it takes the board to make a change. There's no single person that's running the board or running the school system or running the school board. It's just not like that. So we have to work really close together, and we don't always have to agree, but in the end, we have to agree, right? And everything that we do, I think everything that we do or that we decide upon is based on the best interest of every child. And in most cases, everybody that works in the school system. I mean, that's just how it is. And you have to think about it like that because, I'm from the southern end of the county, but I can't say, hey, I want to do this because of South Caldwell, or I want to do this because of West Caldwell. We have to think of every kid in the county. And I think as a board, we do a really good job of setting those things aside and really making decisions based on the best interest of every kid in Caldwell County.
You're talking about how, as a board member, you have to, be an advocate for every child. So if you look at that on the other side, what's the best way for a community member to be an advocate of public education?
So I'm going to say, the same route that I took, because I don't know that I would have survived just jumping into being a school board member. I mean, and educate yourself, because it's a lot. There is a lot to run, it takes a lot to run a school system, and especially a school system of this size, because we're a pretty big school system. So do your homework. Make sure you understand what the role of a school board member is. And I think when you understand those things and you clearly understand it, it'll make you, if you decide to be a school board member and or just an advocate, you have a better understanding, and you're not as quick to pass judgment or throw the Facebook post out there, that's so easy to do for everybody. You really understand why we make decisions and why we do what we do. But come through the system, like, I hate to say it like that, because like, work at your local school and find out what their needs are. Raise that up a little bit, and be on the county PTO, different things like that, and truly understand, what it takes, to run a system like this, because in the end, it's about the kids, but in the end, it's still a business, and we've got budgets and we've got, requirements and processes and people we got to report to and all those things. So just truly understand the process and what it takes to run a system like this, because I was enlightened. It's a lot. It's a lot.
During your time as a school board member, what's something the board has accomplished that you're most proud of, or just very proud of? You think it's something great?
So I know we're on a time limit, so I'm going to pick one thing that I think probably had the most overarching effect, and that's the raises that we did for the staff. You can ask any school board member, and I'm not speaking for them, but you can ask them, was it enough? No, it never will be because of what they do. Did we do the best that we could do with what we had to work with? 150%. And I would do it again if given the opportunity. So I would say just, the ability to, help each individual family out, with a raise was probably, for me, was one of the biggest things that we did.
Yeah, you've long mentioned that you're passionate about making sure teachers understand how appreciated they are. Another thing that you've mentioned you're very passionate about is school safety. And there were some moves made to make sure our campuses are secure and students are safe. So tell us more about why that's such a passion of yours, to make sure that students are safe at school.
So I'll reflect back on what I thought the situation was. I thought it was we couldn't afford it. I thought it was at one point the county, the sheriff's department paid for all of it, or the local school, the local police departments paid for it. I didn't truly understand it, and that's why I always go back to educate yourself, on what happens, because I had no idea why, one, we didn't have an SRO at every single school. And then I'm like, well, do we really need them in elementary schools? Well, of course we do, right? If we need them in one, we need them in all, because if something happens, they're not going to just pick a school. They're going to, they're not going to care about the grade level. So for me, having an SRO in every school was extremely important. And it goes back to, and I'll be honest with you, I don't recall the officer's name, but in elementary school with the DARE program, and somebody probably knows his name, and I feel bad I can't remember his name, but I talked to him a lot, and working in the DARE program and understanding the role and the respect that police officers and the SROs create, at the lower age of those kids, and some of those kids only know SRO or police in a bad situation, and I think when they see them in the schools and like with the DARE program and things like that, it gives them a different outlook on what these guys really do. And, oh, wow, they're at my school. They're here to protect me, and I can talk to them and confide in them. And, so for me, it's just another person for a child, to look up to and, look for a mentor and just follow in their steps. Because I can tell you personally, I think if I would have had an SRO in school when I was in school, I might have been a cop. I really might have been. I really thought about that. And as I look back on growing up, I think I might have been a cop, because I was one of those kids that only looked at, the police as bad, because of the way I grew up. And, so, I mean, it might have changed my whole outlook, or I might not even be sitting here now. You never know, So, yeah, I think it just gives them somebody else to look up to.
Yeah. You got anything to add, Dr. Phipps?
Excuse me. What would you say if individuals had an opportunity to see the kind of behind the curtain of a school board member? What's something you think that would be surprising to just a general member of the public?
I would say, and this is usually, I don't go this route, but I'm going to go this route tonight because I think we have a really good audience to hear this. The time commitment that it takes, in my opinion, this is just Chris's opinion, to be an effective school board member. I think you can be a school board member, right? But to be an effective school board member, it can require a lot of commitment from different meetings and committees and, different, out of town or out of state, different meetings and conventions. And, and two, you want to be involved in all the schools. When you think about, 24, 26 schools, and you're trying to get to activities between, choir and chorus and band and, a football game and a baseball game and a volleyball game. And I mean, it can be a lot, and it can be overwhelming at times. So, just understand, back to the education part, understand the commitment that it takes to be an effective school board member.
And my last question would be, in a time like we're in, where there's so many choice options available for parents, why would you say the Caldwell County Schools are the best option for students?
So again, this could be a really long answer, but I love this because, I know personally, acquaintance-wise, so many people that have been a part of and or a product of public schools. All of us in this room, for examples, and I look up and admire all of you. And then I'm really proud of myself. I was in a really bad situation growing up as a kid. And I can tell you, for me, public schools was my, if you want to call that, my way out. That was my comfort zone when I went to school. I didn't have to worry about the bill collector coming, or whatever was going on, or getting evicted, and those types of things. I knew in school I was safe, and I feel like the public school system does a really good job of welcoming, and I mean truly welcoming with open arms, every kid out there. It doesn't matter your situation, your home life, your educational needs, your mental needs. It doesn't matter. We accept everybody. We don't say, oh, well, you've got A and B going on, we don't want you in our school system. That's not how we operate. We take everybody in and we welcome everybody in, and then we try to work with everybody in the system.
Chris, we call this podcast Learning Together because at Caldwell County Schools, of course, we're not just offering schools and classrooms. We want to foster an entire community of learning for our students, right? So I want to close out by asking you, what's something that you have learned from your community recently that you'd like to share with everyone else?
So I'll say two things. One is a joke, and it's meant to be a joke, but how passionate they are about their sports, all around the county. And I knew that because of my background. But I would say just we don't always get to see this, and generally speaking, we don't see it until something bad happens or there's an unfortunate situation, and that's this community coming together. I mean, Hurricane Helene, and different things like that, where you really see, the people in the community come together and help each other. Whether it's, giving out food or doing a GoFundMe or whatever that situation is. I think people in this community don't realize how much each other have their backs. I just don't think they know. And it's unfortunate, like I said, usually you find those things out like when something bad happens or there's a bad situation. But yeah, I think the things that I've learned, because I didn't know it either, since I've been around, it always seemed like the county was split like north and south, and it's not like that. I mean, this county comes together when they need to come together. And I'm just, it just makes me proud to be from here. Well, not from here, but live here since 2000. I moved here to go to work, and I never left. So, yeah, I'm proud to be from Caldwell County.
Well, thank you.
So again, Caldwell County Schools Board Vice Chair, School Board Member and Vice Chair, Chris Becker, spends some time with us. We are so grateful for that and for your leadership on the board. Thank you for spending time with us. And we invite the audience to join us for our next episode, which we will have soon, and it'll be very exciting. But Chris, thank you for giving us some of your time.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.